Hi there, Chrysler owners. Today on your 2012 Chrysler 300, we're going to be taking a look at and showing you how to install Draw-Tite's 1 1/4 inch trailer hitch receiver. And this is what our hitch looks like when it's installed. The Crosstube is going to be visible underneath the vehicle, as well as the receiver here at the back. It does tuck up pretty far, so as long as you're standing up, you really don't notice it too much, but it is noticeable once you get up on the vehicle here. It's a Class 2 1 1/4 by 1 1/4 receiver, so it's going to be great for light duty towing and accessories such as bike racks and some cargo carriers. You'll secure your accessories to your hitch using a 1/2 inch hitch pin and clip. Now, one doesn't come included with our hitch, but we've got plenty available here at etrailer, and you can also get locking ones, which I would highly recommend to protect your investments. On bottom, we've got hoop style safety chain loops that has a very large opening that should accommodate just about every shape, size, and style of safety chain. Our standard chain has no problem on there, and our big guy here can click on and off with ease. This hitch offers a 350-pound tongue weight, which is the force going down on top of our receiver. And you should be able to get a couple of bikes on a platform rack with that. And if you have a cargo carrier, you should be able to get quite a bit of gear out of your vehicle. You're not going to be able to load them up to the max, but you are going to be able to still get a few hundred pounds outside of your vehicle here and onto the back. That could easily free up enough room for another passenger, maybe even a couple of passengers. It also offers a 3,500-pound gross towing capacity, which is how much that it can pull behind it. And with 3,500 pounds, you should be able to pull some smaller trailers. Maybe you've got a small boat that you want to bring with you, or a jet ski. Those things are going to be easily pulled with this. And if you've got maybe a small utility trailer and you just needed to get a little bit of work done, as long as you keep your load slider, this should be acceptable to do that as well. Now, as always, I recommend that you verify in your vehicle's owner's manual and ensure you don't exceed any of its towing capacities. Now I've got some measurements for you to help you when deciding on accessories. From the center of our hitch pin hole to the edge of our rear bumper here, it's pretty far out at about 6 1/4 inch there. This is important when determining if your accessories will contact the bumper when inserted into the receiver, and if you can place them in the upright storage position without contacting the bumper. And from the ground to the top inside edge of the receiver tube, it measures about 9 1/2 inches. This is important when determining if you need a drop, a rise, or a raise shank on your accessories. And since this one does sit so low, I highly recommend a raise shank on your accessories. Now that we've covered some of the features of our hitch, why don't you follow along with us in the shop. This hitch is going to require the exhaust to drop down, and we're going to be completely removing the muffler on the driver's side. So I do recommend that you give yourself some time and space to do this. If you are doing this at home, I would say at least an hour probably to do this in your driveway, maybe even a little bit longer. I'd recommend an extra set of hands to help you get that muffler out, and also to have some lubricant on hand and possibly a tap set if you're working on an older vehicle, because we are going to use some of the weld nuts in here. So let's get in there and get this going. We'll begin our installation underneath the vehicle. We'll need to lower down our exhaust, and we are going to be removing the driver's side muffler. To do this, we'll start by taking our 13mm socket, and we're going to remove the bolts holding the exhaust hanger clamps in place. We're on the passenger side here, and this is just in front of the muffler, so we're towards the front of the vehicle. You're going to have one just like this just behind the muffler as well, and then we're going to have some on the opposite side of the frame in the same location. Just put our 13 on there and then zip this out of there. The one behind the muffler is a little hard to see because it's pretty much straight up above this tip cover right here. There we go. Now, if your vehicle's a few years old, then you're probably going to have rusted bolts just like we do. So you might have to switch over to a hand ratchet in order to get these out. And I'd also recommend using some penetrating oil, such as WD-40, or my personal favorite is PB Blaster. And that'll help ensure that it doesn't kind of seize up on you, and it usually makes it easier because as that lubricant gets up in there, it kind of loosens up. And this is pretty loose right now, so we could probably save ourselves a little time by switching back to the gun at this point and zipping it out the rest of the way. And it may not look like the exhaust is that loose, but that's because it's sitting on the tip here. So we're going to move over to the other side and get those fasteners removed. We'll now need to remove the clamp that's holding the driver's side muffler in place and attaching it to the rest of our exhaust system. We're going to be removing just this muffler. We're going to use a 15mm socket or wrench to get this off. We're going to use a wrench because of the tighter clearances. And I sprayed a little bit of that lubrication on there as well. Just really helps getting your exhaust system components apart, because all the constant heating and cooling cycles that this goes through really just speeds up corrosion processes. So anytime you're working with exhaust, penetrating lubricant really does go a long way. Now we likely don't need to take this nut all the way off. It just needs to be loose enough to slide the exhaust out. So we're probably far enough right here. So now we need to get the clamp to spread apart. A lot of times a screwdriver or a hammer, if we give a little tap in there, we should be able to get this to spread apart a bit. So now we've got our hammers here. We're gonna get this off of here. I've got two different styles. This one has a metal head. This is only gonna be for getting the clamp really off of here. Looks like it's starting to move there. And that's probably good enough. We just need to have a gap on there. So now that we've got that loosened up, we can start to separate the exhaust. And that's why I have the rubber mallet, because we're gonna be hitting on our exhaust pipe here to try to knock it away to slide it off of the rest of the exhaust system. And you wanna use a softer mallet. This is a dead blow, so it's got a lot of weight on the inside with sand in there, so you can get a pretty good thwack at it. But with the rubber face of the mallet, it's not gonna ding up and damage our exhaust system. This is gonna make a bunch of little ping dents in it, and this will keep it nice and smooth. So the first thing I'll do is I'll take the exhaust and I just push up and down on it like this. That'll usually help kind of break up some of the dirt and stuff that's in there. And you can take that penetrating lubricant and we can hit all that as well. Once again, just trying to work that stuff in there. And once we've got it kind of a little bit free there, then we can take our hammer and start kind of tapping it away. And we can see there as we're doing this, it's sliding off. We've already got a gap. So make sure that you are supporting this the entire time, because once it gets off of there, this is just gonna be in your hands. So it is important if you're uncertain, because this is fairly heavy, the muffler, if you're uncertain about whether you think you're gonna be able to hold it, you might grab an extra set of hands to support the muffler while somebody else knocks it off of there. All right, we got it loose. The hangers do have little kind of clips on them. So it's possible that the clips on the hanger, these little guys right here, can sometimes catch on the frame there to help support some of that weight. And then we'll just slide it out of there once we can make sure we get those unhooked, and we'll set this aside. And now this next step, you can skip if you want. It's not in your instructions, but I like to do it because it's gonna give us a little bit more clearance. We're gonna take this exhaust tip off right here on the end, because our exhaust is kind of just resting on that. We can get a little bit more clearance if we were to get this out of the way. So there's gonna be a bolt located here, just to the inside of it, and there's one just on the outside. We're gonna use a 10mm socket to get those removed. Now that we've got the two side ones removed, there is a third bolt that's located up on top. We're gonna take our 10mm socket, put it on an extension. It's a little bit easier to get the extension slid up in here first, because you can kind of feel for the bolt. There we go, we're on the bolt now. And then we can take our tool up in here, slide it onto our extension, and we can get that last bolt zipped out of there. And now we'll just slide our tip back, and we can slide it off there. You can see the bolt still sitting in there. We'll just set this aside now, and now we can really pull this down, and you can see how easily we're gonna be able to get in there to get that hardware in place. On the driver's side here where we're at, the rearmost hole and the center hole here are gonna be threaded, but the frontmost hole towards the front of the vehicle here is just a solid hole. So we'll need to fish wire our carriage bolt into place in there. You'll have a carriage bolt and a spacer that we're gonna be needing for this, as well as a fish wire. Here's our fish wire. This comes in your kit. We're gonna take the coiled end and poke it through the hole that we want our hardware to come out, and then we're gonna pull that back down through the opening just behind that. We can then take our spacer block, We're gonna slide that into place over our coiled end. We can go ahead and push that up into the frame. Then we'll take our carriage bolt, thread that onto the coiled wire, and now we can feed that up into the frame and pull that back down. We're gonna perform the same procedures now over on the passenger side. The only difference here is gonna be that we're gonna have a carriage bolt in front of our access hole, and we're gonna have a carriage bolt behind it because these are not weld nuts. You're only gonna have one weld nut for the rearmost hole on this side. Now, due to the older age of our vehicle here, you can see we've got a lot of rust forming here on the bottom of the vehicle, and our holes there where our factory weld nuts are, they actually got all gummed up full of rust. And I always take my bolts and just see if I can get it started in there. And if I can't get the bolt started, you don't want to cross thread it, and then you're gonna end up making yourself more work. So you can go ahead and stop and then grab yourself a tap and clean out these holes. If you need a tap and die set, we sell taps here at eTrailer. And I'm actually using one of the taps right out of our Performance Tools set right now. And I'm gonna go ahead and get it back out of here, and we'll let you know what size tap we're using here. And the tap we were using to clean out all the holes in our frame is an M12 by 1.75. So when you're looking for tap kits, you just at least make sure you get one that has this in it. Now with an extra set of hands, we're gonna lift our hitch into position. We need to go up over the exhaust on the passenger side first, and we need to make sure that we're feeding our fish wires down through the appropriate holes in our hitch. It's gonna be the center one, Shane. And that'll tuck right up in there. After you get that side in place, we can then go over to the passenger side, get the fish wire fed down through there, and then we're gonna get it lift up. Our fish wire should then be able to pull to bring our bolt down through our hitch, and we can just pull that fish wire off of there, and we'll then get a nut started onto our carriage bolt there. Once we've got one started on each side, the hitch will hold itself up, making it easier to install the rest of your hardware. And now it is a tight fit over on the passenger side here, but we'll get up in here and get our nut started on this side as well. And again, once you've got a nut started on each side, the hitch will hold itself up, which will make things a lot easier getting the rest of that hardware in place. We can now take the hex head bolts that come in our kit, replacing the conical tooth washers on them with the teeth facing away from the head of the bolt and towards our hitch. These are just going to go right up into those weld nuts that we had cleaned out. You might have to push the hitch slightly forward or backward to get it to line up. And there we go. Threads right up in there. Now we got it all cleaned out. And we're going to do the same thing on the other side. You're only going to have a single hex head bolt on that side. And then we'll go back with a 19mm socket or wrench and tighten down all of our hardware. And then we'll go over to our passenger side. You'll need an extension here. And we can push our exhaust over, and we should have just enough to be able to get up on there. Now that we've got all the hardware run down, we can go back and torque it all to the specifications outlined in our instructions. Now that we've got our hitch all tightened and torqued, we can reinstall our components in reverse order of removal. And get this tip back up in place. So now that we've got that tip back on, we can get our muffler back in place. So we're going to slide this up into position first. Pretty much just doing exactly the opposite of how we took it out of there. You got to find that sweet spot so you can get your tip in there. There we go. And we'll slide it on the end of our exhaust there, get it started. And then we'll just tap it in the rest of the way with our rubber mallet. And it should be easy to tell when you've got it fully reinstalled, because you can use the rust marks of where the band was to know when you got it all the way. There we go. We line right back up with that rust ridge. Now we can get the rest of those fasteners back in place and tighten them down. Now that we've got our exhaust back in place, we've Got our hitch all fully tightened and torqued down. At this point, we're ready to just load up our favorite accessories and hit the road. And that completes our installation of Draw-Tite's 1 1/4 inch trailer hitch receiver on our 2012 Chrysler 300.